You know, every time you browse the web, you're leaving these little digital breadcrumbs everywhere. So let's follow that trail, right? Let's see how this one simple thing, the cookie, somehow turned into the engine for this massive, multi-billion-dollar industry that, well, basically knows everything you do online. And look, this is not a new problem at all. This quote, it's from 2012. That's over a decade ago. It just perfectly sums up this endless cat and mouse game that's been going on between advertisers, browsers, and, well, us. And yeah, this particular incident led to a huge FTC fine for Google. So you gotta ask, right? How is this kind of tracking even possible? Especially when you think you've done everything right and opted out. What's the tech that's actually making all this happen? Okay, to really get how we ended up here, we've got to go back to basics. We have to start with the absolute building block of web memory, the HTTP cookie. Seriously, without cookies, the web would just be, well, it would be a bunch of pages that have no idea who you are from one click to the next. Total amnesia. So what is a cookie really? At its core, it's just a tiny text file. That's it. When you visit a website, the site just asks your browser, hey, can you hold on to this for me? It's basically a little digital name tag, a way for a website to remember you. And here's what one actually looks like under the hood. It's surprisingly simple, right? You've just got a name, some content, which is usually just a long, random-looking string of characters, the website it belongs to, and when it's supposed to expire. That's really all there is to it. Think of it like a little digital index card. Now, this is super important. We need to be crystal clear about what cookies are and what they are not. Yes, they can store info you give a site, and yes, they can track what you do, but only on that specific site. They can see stuff like your browser type, but what they can't do is run programs, they can't carry viruses, and they absolutely cannot go digging through your personal files. They are not malware. Let's just get that straight. Okay, so if they're that simple, what's the big deal, right? Well, this is where it gets interesting. This humble little tool, which was literally just designed to remember your login or what's in your shopping cart, got ingeniously repurposed. It became the foundation for the entire multi-billion-dollar ad tech industry. The real game changer here was the third-party cookie. So this isn't a cookie from the news site you're actually visiting. No, it's a cookie placed on your machine by some other company, like an ad network, whose code is just sitting there, embedded right inside the news site's page. And this whole dance, it happens in the blink of an eye. Literally, in the milliseconds it takes a page to load. You go to a site, its code pings an ad server, that server sees your unique cookie ID, it looks you up in its database to see what you're into, and bam, it sends back a personalized ad. Now imagine that happening on thousands of websites. You can see how they build up a pretty darn detailed profile of you pretty fast. And companies like Google's DoubleClick absolutely perfected this. They got their ad code onto millions and millions of websites, and that let them use these third-party cookies to follow you all over the web. They could build these incredibly detailed profiles for hyper-targeted advertising. And let's be real, this became the financial engine that powers most of the free web we use every day. So you can probably guess what happened next. Once people started to realize what was going on, this kind of widespread tracking led to a huge pushback. We're talking from browser makers, privacy advocates, and, of course, from regular people just trying to use the web. So eventually, Google announced it was going to get rid of third-party cookies in Chrome. And that was a huge deal, given Chrome's market share. But that plan has been delayed. And delayed again. Turns out, killing the cookie is a lot more complicated than anyone thought. And the plan itself changed too. After a bunch of regulatory pressure, especially from the UK, the idea of just banning them outright got swapped out for a user choice prompt. It's kind of like that ask app not to track thing Apple does on iPhones. It puts the decisions squarely back on you. So while Chrome is still trying to figure out what it's going to do, other major browsers have already made their move. Both Firefox and Safari have been blocking these third-party tracking cookies by default for a while now. They took a much more aggressive stance much earlier. Okay, so what can you do about all this, like right now? Well, every single browser lets you manage your cookies directly. If you dig into Chrome's settings, for instance, you can pull up a whole list of every single site that has stored data on your computer, and you could just nuke any of them with one click. Firefox gives you really fine-grained control over what gets blocked. We're talking everything from trackers to those sneaky crypto miners. And Safari's pretty cool. It gives you this privacy report that literally shows you a list of all the trackers it has actively stopped from profiling you. And if you want to go even further, browser extensions like uBlock Origin are just incredibly powerful. They do more than just block cookies. They stop the tracking scripts from the ad networks from even loading or running on the page at all. It's a much stronger line of defense. Okay, but this is where it all gets a little messy. It's really easy to just say, block all third-party tracking. But it turns out, if you block all cross-site data, you actually start to break parts of the web that we all use every single day. There are some serious trade-offs here. Think about it. Every time you use a login with Google button, or pay with PayPal on some shopping site, or even just watch an embedded YouTube video, you're actually relying on some kind of third-party data sharing to make that work. So if you just block everything, all that stuff just breaks. Which brings us to some of the new solutions people are working on. The old way was kind of like having one giant shared cookie jar that any website could dip into. The new way, called partitioning, is totally different. It gives each website its own separate, private cookie jar. The official name for this tech is chips. And what it means in practice is that, say, an embedded chat widget can remember who you are on a news site. But when that same widget sees you on a completely different blog, it has no idea you're the same person. It can't connect the dots anymore. It can't track you across the web. Then there's another approach, called the Storage Access API. This one completely flips the script. Instead of just letting embedded content grab your data by default, now it has to pop up a prompt and explicitly ask for your permission. You get to say yes or no. You're in control. And look, the solutions are getting even more granular and specific. Like, what about a company that owns a bunch of sites, like Google and YouTube? Well, something called related website sets lets them declare, hey, these sites are all part of the same family, let them share data. Then there's another thing called FedCM, which is a whole new API designed from scratch just to make those sign-in with buttons work in a much more private way. So what's the big takeaway from all this? The bottom line is, the web is moving away from this wide-open, default-on system to something that's much more locked down and permission-based. And yeah, we're getting a lot more privacy, but it's coming at the cost of a whole lot more complexity. And finding that perfect balance, that sweet spot between a web that actually works smoothly and a web that respects our privacy, that is still the internet's single biggest challenge.